The war with Iran has suddenly made energy security a global priority again. Oil prices are rising, shipping routes are under threat, and governments are scrambling to respond. But energy security isn't just about having enough energy. Here's a smarter way to think about energy security. People often talk about energy security as if it's just one thing, but it's actually 5 different problems at once, and understanding them is the key to understanding what's really going on. In this video, I'll explain these 5 different types of energy security before looking at the different strategies that can be adopted to improve it. Finally, we'll apply this framework to look at the current geopolitical situation with the war on Iran. To begin with, let's look at the 5 different types of energy security. To explain this, I'm going to draw a parallel with food security. We all go and buy groceries, and we know what being hungry feels like, so it provides a nice relatable analogy that anyone can understand. The first type of security is called availability, which is simply, do we have enough of what we need in the country? If we look at food first, this would be ensuring that we have enough of the right type of food within the country. But there's 2 aspects here. First, do we have enough total food to feed the population? Because if not, people are going to go hungry. But even if a country has enough food overall, it still needs the right kinds of food. If all the calories came from strawberries, but there were no staples like rice, bread or potatoes, the system wouldn't work. Energy works in the same way. A country needs enough of the right fuels: oil for transport, gas for heating, and sources of electricity generation to keep the lights on. Falling short on any of these would leave people without mobility or warmth or the ability to go about their daily lives. The second type of security is called affordability. The commodity must be available at prices that the population can afford. Looking at food to start with, it's no good having enough food in the country if people are priced out of buying it. A quirky example here is the Philippine onion crisis of 2022 to 23, where crop failures, supply chain failures, and import restrictions caused the price of onions to rise to higher than that of meat. A failure of affordability can also be deeply tragic. During the Bengal famine of 1943, rice prices rose during the Second World War, and high inflation caused a drop in real-term salaries for the rural poor. The rice was there on the shelves, but only the rich could afford to buy it. Ultimately, 2 to 3 million people died, even though food was available in markets. The same principles apply to energy. It's no good having enough of the right sort of fuel in the country if it's unaffordable. The Russia-Ukraine war caused huge spikes in gas prices across Europe. In the UK, gas never ran short of supply, but the high price was a major problem for poorer sectors of society, and many millions were forced into a choice between eating and heating, even in one of the world's largest economies. A survey by National Energy Action showed that 49% of respondents had turned off heating, even when cold, in order to save money. The third type of security is called robustness, which is how well a system is set up to withstand sudden shocks. Looking at food first, shocks are actually quite common in food systems, as droughts, extreme wet weather and disease can cause crop failures. A drought across Ghana and the Ivory Coast in 2024 severely affected cocoa crops, and with these 2 countries responsible for nearly half of global cocoa production, the price of chocolate soared worldwide. Supply chain failures can also cause shocks to the food system. Who can forget 2018 when UK branches of KFC ran out of chicken? In the energy sector, shocks can occur due to technical failures, a power plant going offline or a problem within the grids. The most notable recent example is the major power outage that occurred in Spain and Portugal in April 2025. A more robust energy system would have been able to ride through the technical faults experienced without such a major loss of power. Sudden shocks in energy systems can also be caused by geopolitical events. Major wars and events across history have all been followed by high prices on international oil markets, and the current crisis in Iran is following the same pattern. The fourth type of security is called resilience. Resilience is similar to robustness, as it's also about dealing with sudden shocks. But resilience is how fast the system can recover once a shock has occurred. Robust systems keep on working. Resilient systems recover quickly when things go wrong. In 2022, bird flu wiped out more than 100 million chickens in the United States. Because it takes time to rebuild egg-laying flocks, the supply recovered very slowly, and prices are still elevated years later. That's a lack of resilience. We've seen similar issues within energy systems. Take the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which caused a price spike on international gas markets, as you might expect. But the high prices lasted for several years, and even today are still higher than before the conflict. Similarly, after the Fukushima disaster in 2011, Japan closed all 54 of its nuclear reactors. More than 4 years passed before the first reactor came back online, and only 14 reactors are operational today, a clear example of how slowly energy systems can recover from major shocks. The fifth type of security is called adaptability, and it's about the ability of a system to transform itself in the face of longer-term changes. In the food sector, the classic example is climate change, and how it affects the ability to grow certain crops in certain areas. As the climate warms, how, for example, will the Champagne region of France adapt if the area is no longer suitable for growing Pinot and Chardonnay grapes? It's estimated that 85% of currently productive vineyards may no longer be suitable in the future. In terms of energy, adaptability is about how energy systems evolve over time, integrating renewables, upgrading grids, and managing the transition away from fossil fuels while keeping the lights on and prices stable. Where will these new generation sources be located? What are the implications for grid infrastructure? And how much storage will be needed? And it's not just new infrastructure. What happens to all the old gas pipelines, oil refineries, petrol stations, or even the boilers in your homes, as energy systems electrify and transform? Some countries are going to find this shift easier than others, because their existing energy system and infrastructure is already adaptable. So those are the 5 types of energy security. But how do you actually go about improving them? To improve availability, countries diversify fuels, diversify their suppliers, strengthen or duplicate infrastructure, build reserves, and develop domestic energy. To keep energy affordable, they stabilise prices through long-term contracts, financial hedging, by reducing demand, and they can introduce price caps or consumer protections. To withstand shocks, systems are built with spare generation plants, overcapacity in network, added flexibility, and they protect infrastructure against extreme weather or cyber attacks. To recover quickly, systems rely on backup systems, rapid repair capability, self-sufficient microgrids for critical sites, and ways of reducing demand in an emergency. And to adapt over time, countries invest in new technologies, build future-proof infrastructure, and redesign energy systems and markets to support self-sufficient, low-carbon generation. That's quite a lot of information, so don't worry if you don't take it all in on a first viewing. The key points here are that there is a lot to be done, and that improving the different types of energy security requires different approaches for each of the 5 pillars. Apart from energy efficiency, which is helpful everywhere, there's no single magic solution for improving energy security across the board. Most actions improve some dimensions, but make others worse. Storage improves robustness and resilience, but its cost means it's damaging to affordability. Renewables improve availability and price stability, but their intermittent nature has knock-on effects for robustness. It means that arguments like "we just need more renewables" or "we need more storage on the system" are an oversimplification, and everything needs to be assessed against all 5 pillars. A strong energy security strategy is therefore about managing these trade-offs in a sensible manner. Now that you understand the different types of energy security, you can make much more sophisticated assessments than we see in the media, or even the statements of politicians. Let's apply this framework to the Iran crisis, with a focus on impacts in Europe. Instead of treating energy security as one issue, we can break it down into 5. First, availability. Around 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, so global supply will tighten. But Europe imports relatively little Gulf gas and has large gas storage and diversified LNG imports after the Russia-Ukraine crisis, so physical shortages are unlikely, at least in the short term. Affordability is where the impact is going to be strongest. Oil spikes feed directly into transport costs, and knock-on effects on gas markets impact heating, electricity costs, and industry. So even if energy is available, it's going to become harder to afford. Europe's system is more robust than it was before the Ukraine war. Supplies are more diversified and infrastructure has expanded, but the system is still under stress from global market shocks. In terms of resilience, again, Europe is better prepared. Petroleum and gas storage, demand reduction, emergency plans and coordinated responses help absorb shocks. But the longer the conflict lasts, the harder the recovery becomes. In terms of long-term adaptability, crises like this often accelerate energy transitions. Higher fossil fuel risks push countries towards renewables, electrification and efficiency, and faster than initially planned. Fossil fuels aren't just a climate problem, they're also geopolitically and economically volatile, and that's no basis for a stable energy system. In conclusion, energy security isn't a single problem with a single solution. It's 5 different challenges: availability, affordability, robustness, resilience, and adaptability. Understanding those 5 dimensions is the key to understanding energy security in a turbulent world. Throughout this video, we've seen how many of the security issues we face are because we've become locked into outdated ways of powering our energy system. We'll be looking at this issue of lock-in more detail in the next video, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and make sure you catch the next episode of Energy 101.